Well, good morning, friends, and welcome to my channel. I'm Crystal, and this is Homemaking on the Homestead. And in today's video, I'm just going to take you with me over the last few days this week, just various things that I have been doing. I decided I would come outside. I was going to go up on my deck, and it was just way too hot. So I am underneath a tree right now next to my creek. So hopefully the noise of my creek flowing back there isn't going to be too much of an interruption in this. But anyway, these beautiful summer days that are here, there's something about learning to just kind of get into the flow of it and do our jobs and do the things that need to be done that make our house a home. And so I'll be, sharing a little bit about the things that I'm doing as you watch this video. During a stretch of really cool days, unusually cool summer days, a pot of soup just started sounding really, really good. And so sometimes you just got to look in your refrigerator, look in your pantry or whatnot and see what you have on hand and just do a little cooking from scratch. It's good to remember that not everything that we make has to come from a cookbook or a recipe. And the more that a person learns how to cook, without that, the better they are able to utilize so many resources that might otherwise have just sat and gone bad. So I looked in my pantry, I looked in my refrigerator and my freezer to see what I could pull together to make this pot of soup. I had one sweet potato and I had several carrots, so I pulled out 4 or 5 of them. I had a partial onion. I had some celery, so I got some of that, a couple ribs of celery, and I chopped up my onion. I brought out some extra because I wasn't sure, but didn't end up needing that. I also had some chicken broth in the refrigerator from previously making some Instant Pot chicken, so I knew I could use that. And in my freezer, I had some rotisserie chicken that I had chopped up for use in the future. And I just started assembling this soup similar to how I would any soup, by sauteing the onions and the celery so that they got a little bit softer, added my broth, added the veggies that were going to take the longest to cook, the sweet potatoes and the carrots. I did some basic seasonings of things that we like, my typicals that I like to use, and I brought that to a boil, a simmer. I covered that when it was boiling and just let it cook until the carrots were nice and soft. By this time, the sweet potatoes had just pretty much disintegrated, which is okay. That's kind of what I wanted because it actually helped to thicken the broth and made it absolutely delicious tasting broth. At that point, I added in my chicken and I just stirred it up, heated everything up, and then let it just sit for a bit to mingle all those flavors. I think when we know how to cook from scratch and we can just pull things out of our pantries and make up a meal, it is one of the biggest blessings that we could possibly have. We save money, we don't allow food to go to waste, and we continue to keep ourselves well nourished in the process. Canning is one of those basic homemaking skills that I would really encourage any of you ladies that don't can to consider learning how to can. It is just so amazing to be able to put up your own food and to have your own convenience foods on hand. On this particular day, I was canning up some Costco meatballs. Those are amazing to have on hand when you just need a quick dinner option. So many things that you can do with them. One of the other things that has really simplified the world of canning are digital canners. I have a Presto digital canner, and it makes canning very simple, especially if you're new. It is not difficult to learn. There's so many instructions out there on how to can properly, how to can safely, safely. And I think it's just a worthwhile investment for what you can get out of it. It's great for canning leftovers, canning produce, canning jams and jellies. They're really nice. And like I said, perfect for beginners. When I can these meatballs, I typically put 12 meatballs into each pint jar. I make the broth. You can do homemade broth. I use some Better Than bouillon for these. And after putting the meatballs in the jar, I top them off with the broth and 1 inch of headspace. And before I put the lids on, I will take just some plain white vinegar and put that into a little bowl, and then sometimes I add a little bit of water to that, and then I wipe off the rims to make sure that there's no food or debris or anything on them that would cause the lids not to seal. After I have the lids on, it is time to put on all the rings. You want to just do them finger tight. I had somebody ask me why, and that is because these jars do need to vent the air out of them, and so you don't want them to be wrenched down or sealed real tightly. I put them in my canner at this point, and it takes 75 minutes to can pints and 90 minutes to can quart jar. And again, canning is just one of those basic skills, at least in my mind, that every homemaker should know how to do. Not only can they save money, not only can they provide good food on your pantry shelf, you can have more control over the ingredients that go into your food, and there is also just a deep sense of satisfaction that comes from knowing these types of skills. The day after canning, after everything has cooled down, I always take time to remove the rings and to wash the jars. Somebody asked me at one point why I wash the jars, and it's because of the siphoning that does happen. Liquids can escape from the jar, and then they kind of stick to the jar on the top and on the sides. So I always give them a good wash, and then of course wash my rings. Now on this particular batch, sadly I had a jar that didn't seal. I put it into the refrigerator with plans to use it that night for our dinner. And those were my plans next on this day, was to figure out what are we having for dinner. The first thing I do is I look through my refrigerator to see what kind of things I have that need to be finished up. I had a little bit of chili, not enough to make a meal out of, that we had had a couple nights before that, my own home canned chili. The day before, when I made the meatballs, I had made meatball sub sandwiches, and we had one of those left over. And I decided to, at that point, to pull out some chips and some salsa that could go with this meal, and grab one more sandwich roll, and I would use some of the meatballs from the canning jar that did not seal to make another meatball sub sandwich. I also took some time that day to put the date. I usually just put the month and the year on my jars, and then go put them on my little canning shelf. I have other canning shelves in the basement, but I have picked the one that is next to my stairs, and I tend to just use that one for most of all my more recent canning. So I carefully walk down the stairs and put my jars there up on the shelf, ready to be used along with all my other canning goods. Again, something that just makes a person feel so accomplished. So much of our homemaking life is the simple and the everyday, and those are the real times of blessing. Some people might look at that as being mundane, but it truly is a blessing to be able to care for your home. It is something that the Lord has given you, and He felt that you were the one that was the most capable of taking care of your home. And I say, like everything else, do all unto the glory of God, and give Him thanks for that, and be grateful for such a privilege to be the one that takes care of the home and all the things that go on in the home each day. Okay, ladies, I really hope that you found today's video to be encouraging. I hope you found it to be inspiring and just give you some enthusiasm for your own home and your role as a homemaker. I always say this in so many of my videos, but please remember, if you have a home, you are a homemaker. It doesn't matter whether you are a stay-at-home wife, whether you have children, whether you don't have children, maybe you're an empty nester, maybe you still have children at home. It doesn't matter. If the Lord gave you a home, you're a homemaker. Even if you work outside the home, all those options. If you have a home, you are still a homemaker. And it's good to remember the value and the importance of the work that we do each day in our homes. I hope you guys have an awesome and blessed day today, a wonderful week ahead, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Bye-bye.